It must have been, early morning, actually around noon time for you when this news broke out and the drama played out, and the reaction to the Korean won. How do you see the market impact of all of this?
Well, Tanvi, Sam, good seeing you both. The initial reaction was everything started trading down, but the one thing that was very visible to us out of the States was that we did not see any participation among the long onlys selling any kind of a Korean equity, which was very surprising to me. But then again, you have to realize Samsung GDRs don't trade liquid like it used to be. They used to be trading very liquid back in the days out of the UK. It's very illiquid name. We did trade down about 7%. SK Telecom, POSCO, KT Corp, KB. These names have not really been a big liquid names. But we didn't see any long-only guys selling any Korean ADRs when the initial reaction was, when initial story that came out on the martial law. The one name was obviously Coupang, which is a very liquid name. And I think the biggest story out of our end was that the stat arb guys who trade at premium discounts versus SK Telecom's ADRs and the locals, these are most of the ADR names, were actually buying at deep discounts. EWI, which traded almost at a 7% discount to NAV, was actually scooped up by a lot of hedge funds that were putting the trade back on again. So there was no panic from our end. Again, I think the story is not so much on the single stocks. I think the story really is about the Korean won. I think the best reflection of this was Micron trading off 5% right off the bat because people thought a weaker Korean won will impact the Hynix of the world and the Samsung of the world given their capex investments. Because obviously, as you know, the biggest suppliers to Samsung Hynix are Lamry, ASML, Tokyo Electron. So that was the initial impact. And they said Micron will have a much better pricing power. But everything kind of stabilized. It was very shocking to me. This is before the martial law was lifted late in the afternoon. The market started trickling higher, and these deep discounts were pretty much vanished given around 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So long only guys didn't panic. But I still think a lot of people are waiting to digest where the won is going because I don't think this story has really ended. And they will be gauging this over the next few days to see what the direction of the market locally is and how the currency is going to trade.
Right. So while institutional resilience kicked in for reversing the martial law within a matter of a few hours, now what plays out is political uncertainty in the impeachment process, if it were to happen, and how it were to play out. I want to understand, Farzin, on the Korean won, what's the outlook because of that? It's been very, very volatile for the currency in the last 6 hours.
Yeah, it did weaken around the 14.40 versus the US dollar, as you saw. And now we're around, I think, 14.12, 14.13, as you're seeing on the screens. Again, I think that's what's going to be watched very closely. I think you will have stop losses being triggered if we really move aggressively around the 14.80 level. And people have talked about it, and people were watching it very closely from my end. And that would be a little bit of panic that would sit into the ADRs and the single stocks, and EWY for that matter. But once we start stabilizing back to 14.12 again, there was a calm within the market. Again, you have to realize that Korean locals is an ID market. There's a far limit ownership by a lot of these names that foreigners can't be able to trade. So even the stat arb guys are limited on what they can be able to do versus the locals on the ADRs on the arbitrage. But again, their initial reaction was to buy, which was very shocking to me given such a big headline because, again, I saw the Russian crisis back in the 1980s and long ago, the Ukraine war, longs were not sold at all.